my hairdresser, I had been going to for 12 years. I had witnessed to her. I used CWT, EE. I've tried everything that I could to try to reach her for Jesus Christ. About 2 years ago, she was washing my hair when she started telling me a story. And this is her story. To understand her story, though, I need to back up and say one thing, and that is that she had and her husband had bought an old home, and they had renovated the old home. And each room of the old home was used to rent out to other beauticians so that they could have a studio there. She and her husband spent hours fixing this house up. She had only been in it for about a year when she said to me, "Margaret, I need to tell you something. You won't be able to come here anymore. Next time you see me, I will be in a single studio, and I'm going to rent from a friend of mine. I'm going to move out of this old house, and I found a friend of mine. She has a multi-studio, and I can rent one room for her, and that's where I'm going to go." At first, I, like everybody else, just said okay, because I was tired and I didn't want to listen. And then she repeated the story, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh my gosh, that's her story. She's sending me a cry for help. She's talking to me." And so if we were listening to her, you would say, "Well, what happened?" And that's what I did. I said, "So what happened?" It's the best question that you can ask anybody when they're telling you something. Ask them what happened. Great question. So she said, "Well, you know, my husband and I spent all this time, and we worked and we slaved. We spent hours night and day, and I'm just tired of working on this thing. I'm not going to work on it anymore. So I found my friend, and we've got this one room that she'll rent to me, and I'm moving all my equipment, my stuff there, and that's where my studio will be located." Now I know I have her story. Pretty good guess. And I said to her, "Could you tell me, are there other old houses that you're ready to move out of?" She jumped up, sprayed the ceiling with water, and she said, "How did you know?" Now, that is her story. As we talk about story listening today and storytelling and the power of the story, then you will understand what was her story. If we're like most people, we would talk about her and answer her, said, "I know you've got to be tired," because it sounds like she has a story of burnout, but that's not her story at all. And as we go through the presentation, we'll say what really was going on in her life. Because when people share their stories with us, they share what we call the meta story, as John Savage says. And it is the story that they feel like they can trust with you, because they're not going to tell you a lot of real up-close personal stuff initially, because they don't want to feel vulnerable. They don't know you. They don't know if they can trust you. So they tell you a story on top of a story to see if you really are listening and see if you really do care. Actually, that is nothing more than a cover-up story of what was really going on down below, but it often parallels exactly what's happening in their lives. And that's what she did. She gave me a story, and it was paralleling. When I asked her, "Are there other homes that you're ready to move out of?" And she said, "How'd you know?" I said, "Tell me about it. When are you leaving?" "Well, I'm leaving Kevin, my husband, at the end of this month." "What happened?" "Well, you know, we've been married for 20 years, but I'm just," listen to the language, "tired of working on it. I've worked on it and I've worked on it, and I'm tired of it." And that was her story. And so I'm not going to stay in that big old house that we have worked on and fixed up, a home that she lived in, not the home studio, but the home that she lived in. I have found a single room apartment on the square downtown. Listen, it's parallels. Isn't it incredible? I'm moving into it. I'm leaving Kevin and moving to a single room apartment. "And what about your daughter?" I'm leaving her as well. It would be better she stay with her father. Now we have a person that's just told me the most gut-wrenching story of their lives. And what do you do with it? That is called their story. And what I've discovered, and we'll unpack as we go through, is that a lot of times we want to share our story. We want to tell them, oh, I had something similar to happen. And then often when we get in and start sharing our story unfolds, and our story comes bigger and greater than their story, and they don't think you understand. Nor did you take time to listen to them. It became your story after a while. And you all have had that happen to you, I know. I mean, I've had it happen to me in the hospital. I remember even the nurse, when I was trying to tell her I was feeling some way, she said, oh, don't worry about you feeling that unusual pain. It's nothing to worry about. I had the similar surgery. And 20 minutes later, she is still telling me her story. And she never did let me tell her what I was trying to tell her. And I went away frustrated and mad at her. But that's how many people, when we encounter them, they're wanting to tell us, they're wanting to connect with us, they want to tell their story, but we don't take time to really listen and hear what they're saying. It's an interesting research in the book, The Power of the Story Factor. Annette Simmons shares that 63% said you cannot be too careful with most people when they survey people along the street. Most people say they can't trust you. I think that's quite interesting. 37% said they believe that most people would take advantage of you. So again, that supports that they're not going to just tell you their story where they're really hurting or they're really excited about it because they're not sure they can trust you with what they want to say. And 85% of people said that they know personally, said that the people they do know, that they would really be fair. So if I know you, then I feel like I can trust you. And the story listening bit is to say, I can help you connect with people instantaneous through story listening so that they come to this 85% thinking they can trust you and they will tell you their story. I've had lots and lots of people tell me story. I was sharing with Johnny Rumbo earlier today that I literally have had people walk around, follow me around the mall while I was trying to shop to finish telling me their story. I had people literally on the plane get off the plane, go to the baggage claim department, and still telling me their story, get onto the tram under the subway system at the Atlanta airport, still talking to me with their story, follow me because they're desperately wanting to tell the story. One of the funniest ones was an oncologist. And he got on, he was sitting next to the plane with me. You were asking me about traveling. He was sitting next to the plane with me and he was reading a book. And I started a conversation with him about his book, simple. And he told me a story. I followed his line of storying. When we finally landed 2 hours later, he was still talking with me. And he got up to leave, and as we were deboarding the plane, he said, I don't know why I've talked to you this whole entire trip. I make it a policy to carry a book on the airplane with me so I don't have to talk with people. And he said, I don't know why I'm still talking with you. This is the strangest thing. And in the meantime, he's told me his story, and I've had a chance to witness to him. Story is very important to people. They are going to share with you what's going on in their life through stories if we will just listen to them. So we have to first know how to listen. Listening means to have thoughtful attention, to give consideration, to be in tune with people. And I don't care how well trained you are, one of the things I have to do as a listener is constantly remind myself, now Margaret, don't forget to listen. Don't forget to listen. So even when I'm training people on story listening, I keep telling myself, listen, listen, listen. Because our natural habit is to talk, 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 talk. And you can see already, I love to talk. In Proverbs, the 18th chapter, it does say this. It says, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. So